Miniature painting starter sets are always those things that are often overlooked by anyone who spent more than 2 minutes in the hobby. Mostly because, well, they're starter sets, aren't they? It's fairly easy to forget, you know, that once you're deep into the hobby with all the toys, the gadgets, the gimmick paints and quality of life improving tools, that for a lot of people, this is where the hobby started and often where they stay in the hobby for a very long time. So I have set myself a challenge. A starter set painting challenge, using only what comes in the starter sets that go with that specific model. And of course the fabled Citadel starter brush of legend. However, we have hit a small roadblock. These sets don't have everything you need to get started with Warhammer. So rather than buying one of those cheap, iffy and frankly shitty clippers, I'm going to be using Gold Handle. Yeah, Japanese sandor, folded 1,000,000 times steel, should eat through these sprues well enough. Now, despite these being push fit and apparently no glue needed, I don't really dig these Games Workshop push fits. They've gotten better since they first came out, but they ain't no Gundam. So, to avoid gaps that will need filling later, I clip some of the pegs and I'm going to glue them. There's also no primer in the box. Obviously, they've got to make money somehow, and I imagine it's a lot harder to sell solvents to kids. So we got to cheat on this a little bit. I'm using a brand called Colourforge, which is available from most hobby shops, affordable, with a lovely matte finish, and they do have pretty big cans. So, with everything built, it is time to decide which models I want to paint up. So I'm going to pick one model from each set and paint that as best I can with what we've got. Of course, if I was Elston from Elstonation, I would just paint every model, because that man is terrifying at painting in bulk.
Anyway.
First up, the Tyrannid. I haven't painted a Tyrannid in a long time, so let's do that first. Going on first is a base coat of Naggaroth Night on all those little schmickle dorsal fins on the back. And this is the only set to include a contrast paint, and a contrast paint is essentially somewhere between an ink and a wash. It shades recesses and tints the raised areas. It is a very handy tool for batch painting. Okay, we are going to cheat a little bit more here and break out a makeup brush that I found in Boys for 85p. It's a big one, so I'm going to try trimming it down. Yeah, that kind of works. It's not very good, but it does work. Kind of. I went with an uncircumcised version of the brush in the end, and I'll tidy up the schmickle dorsal fins on the back later on. Next up is layering and highlighting, and since there's no shades of purple to highlight with, we're going to make our own by mixing Naggaroth Night with Thunderhawk Blue. Steady away, picking out the larger flat surfaces on the models and edges. I apologise now, and in advance by the way, I set my focus for how I normally would, but since I don't normally paint in this way, I ended up bringing the model closer so that I could see it better, so there's quite a few shots where the focus is definitely off. Again, I chose to mix a new colour from the blue and the coral white to give us some cool stripes and edges on the model. And as a nice touch, I'm taking that Naggaroth Night and putting some spots on the fleshy bits of the Tyrannid, kind of like maybe like a coconut crab shell maybe. and watering down the Thunderhawk blue, we made a wash, just to fill in the biotech bits on the gun and the legs. Claws and teeth I paint white, and then use a blue wash again, just to tie everything together. Nice. And to finish off, with some baby shit brown texture paint. Great. Since dry brushing is my thing, or one of my things, WAYLAND Games were kind enough to send along some cheap and cheerful dry brushes for me to try out. And these kind of brushes are great for something that we call overbrushing. With this trick, we take a black primed model or a dark primed model and use downward strokes only and applying the paint neat to the model. This preserves the dark areas where the light wouldn't normally reach, essentially saving you a step in painting if you wanted to do that. And not hugely necessary with overbrushing, but I'm going to throw this wash on to see if I can enrich in this gold colour a little bit. And once again, we dry brush the neat gold back on, but much lighter in application this time. Since they included some lead belcher silver paint in the box, I'll do a final highlight with that. I'm not a huge fan because I think it desaturates the gold quite a bit, but if I'd mix the two colours, maybe that would be the sweet spot there. Thankfully this starter set includes an off-white paint, so we can mix it with our Cantor blue, make ourselves a nice pastel blue, and highlight the shield for some sick orange and teal pop. And we can use the agrax again in the recesses of the shield to define the lines between the white and blue, where I definitely might have had a little shaky moment and got the paint in the wrong place. I threw some lead belcher here and there on the weapons and buckles and on the pouches and belts. There's not really a leathery colour in this or a black colour, so I just painted them with something that wasn't gold, basically. Nice.
Hello, hello!
You alright there, John?
Yep.
Okay.
Hello!
Yes, John.
How's tricks?
Yeah, not bad, just working on something.
Oh. I have brought something for you to review for the channel.
Right.
And you'll be pleased to know it is not Games Workshop. Are you familiar with Games Workshop?
Yes, yeah, I am. I'm back on the Games Workshop stuff now, though, so,
They kicked my dog.
They did?
Contrast paint is a chump change family recipe.
John.
Yep.
What have you got for me?
It's a board game about the UK's most successful police series that I have procured via means of dark magic. The Bill. The board game of the UK's most successful television police series.
Fucking hell.
Yep.
Okay, I can't promise I'm going to review it, but if you just want to pop it inside, I'll take a look.
I can't come inside. I'm limited to liminal spaces such as this. Also, I must stay in the light.
Alright then, pop it in front of that mirror then, John.
Okay, I'll leave it here.
Fucking hell.
You really shouldn't have that chest. It's bad news, very bad news.
Yeah, so you and everyone else keeps telling me, mate. Right, now that John Chumpchange is shuffled back to whatever cavernous halls of tedium he ambled out of, we can crack on with the Space Marine. Straight away, I'm overbrushing the McCrag blue on there. Same principles as before with the Stormcast. Preserve the shadows. And again, since we've got a white in this set, we can create our own highlights. Now, my taste in Ultramarines is distinctly 90s, so I grew up on very pastel blue looking toy soldiers. So this shade of blue, chef's kiss for me, it's fine. Now, if you're familiar with MS Paints, you know I don't really do edge highlighting. I have MS, I shake a lot, and I have intention tremors, meaning that I sit perfectly fine when I'm doing nothing. As soon as I try and defuse a bomb, I start shaking like a shitting dog. So it takes a lot of concentration and sometimes a shot of whiskey to be able to do the technique in short bursts. Sadly, these dry brushes are a little bit too big to just catch the edges, so I am taking a big old bite and edging with a mixture of white and blue. And to finish this guy off, a nice coat of baby shit brown on the base. Wonderful. Okay, last up, and predominantly for audience retention reasons, is this Orc dude, or whatever IP Stunlock name they've given it these days. This for me was the hardest one to work with. It doesn't have any light colours, or lighter colours, I should say. Red, brown and green and a metallic. Sure, the green is fairly light, but when it's mixed with other colours, I just kind of get a mid-level brown, which doesn't really serve as a highlight. They just kind of deepened the existing base coats, or cooled off some of the reds maybe. So for me, this set just doesn't kind of work for the challenge. Don't get me wrong, the finished model looks absolutely fine, but I didn't really get to do any colour mixing with it. Of course, if you have any suggestions on how I could have made this work, please let me know in the comments. Don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing this paint set because this isn't what it's for. It's a taster. You have some fun with these and then you buy more paint. That's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. Across the board though, these sets are absolutely brilliant. I know Games Workshop kicked John Chumpchange's dog and stole the contrast paint recipe from his family, but I gotta give them their dues on this. The paint quality has increased massively since I moved away from using their paints, and I kinda envy anyone coming into the hobby at this point, because this paint is pretty lovely to work with. And I only went through 2 starter set brushes, guys. The starter brush, with some tasteful trimming on the scissors, is a solid choice of brush. Before we finish up, I just want to give a special shout out to my main man, Lifeguard Leroy, who yes, is a former lifeguard, but he's moved into developing his own tabletop game system and is designing his own line of miniatures to go alongside it. Let me introduce you to Grime and Grit Fantasy Wars. Grime and Grit's initial wave takes inspiration in the form of samurai rat dudes, which is probably the coolest sentence I've said all week. But as the game develops and the world and the lore opens up, the inspirations are going to grow and incorporate other periods of history and other fantasy elements and inspirations. What's cool about Grime and Grit Fantasy Wars, or one of the main cool things, is that you can get into it completely free. The rules set and a handful of units to play the demo game are available for download right now from Cults 3D. It includes the rules, several units, and some terrain to get you started. But you can also find the link in the pinned comment down below. If you want to know where I got these cool Nezumi skeleton cavalry from, they're available from Lifeguard Leroy Patreon until the 25th of April, so get a move on there. These skeletons are fully modular and posable, and really pack a mid-90s undead vibe that I love. I'm pretty sure I can also find a use for these guys in loads of other game systems. The Patreon is going to be updated regularly with new units to insert into your armies and grow them with each new release. If you want to get involved, all you have to do is head to that pinned comment down below and check out the free demo set, and take a dive into the world of Grime and Grit Fantasy Wars. Right, let's see how these models turned out. This fun experiment turned out okay. For me at least, I would be happy to use these paints again, especially for the Tyranids and the Ultramarines, since they're, they're kind of perfectly tabletop, solid standard. The Orc, nah, I'd probably do a completely different tact with that. The Stormcast, he's alright, but no, I'll probably stick to my Bayeux or Liquid Gold and Guilliman Flesh combo. Overall, I hope this has helped you in some way, whether you're a beginner or an experienced hobbyist who gets hobby paralysis now and again. Strip it all back, pick 6 colours, and paint the night away without any pressure. Big thank you to WAYLAND Games for sending this stuff over for me to play with. And thank you to my wonderful Patreon community who I hope will also get a little positivity out of this. Until next time, cheers, I'm out of here.